Welcome back to the podcast. Today's episode is all about lunch.
I'm Jennifer Della Quadri, and this
No.
is the Raising Happy Teens
This episode is
podcast,
all about what's
where you
known
learn
as
how
the
to
sandwich
successfully guide your
generation.
teenager into
And this is a
adulthood
newer term to
without losing
me,
your sanity in the
but it makes
process.
sense. So
Let's
basically,
do this.
sandwich generation is where many of us are in our lives, where
Welcome
we are
back to the
sandwiched
podcast.
between our
In this episode, I'm
older
sitting
teenagers,
down
young
with
adults,
Coach Suzanne
and our
Hanna
aging parents.
to discuss
And
anxiety,
we're in a situation where we
alcohol,
need to care
and
for
teen
both.
girls.
And so I'm going to be
Suzanne
talking
talks
a
about
little
her
bit more
decision
about
to
what the
stop
sandwich
drinking
generation
and how she
is,
made it her mission
why
to
it's
help girls
more
feel
common
heard,
now than
more
it
comfortable in
has
their
been
own
in the
skin,
past.
and more equipped
Some
to handle
of the
life's
challenges that come
curveballs.
with being
Suzanne
part of
and
the
I
sandwich
agree
generation,
that girls deserve to be
and
heard and supported.
of course, what to
And
look
speaking
out
of
for
being
to know
heard
if
and
it's really
supported,
taking a toll.
I just
And
created
as
a
always,
brand
I will
new
be giving you some
exclusive
tips and pointers on
podcast
how
episode
to
for you moms
manage some of the
called
strain
Speak
that
Up
can come
with
along
Confidence.
So let's dive in.
Whether it's
So
asking
again,
your teen
as
to
I
help out
mentioned,
around the
it's
house,
the sandwich
negotiating a
generation.
raise at
So
work,
the
or
terms
setting
that
a
go along
boundary
with
with
it
family,
all have to
this
metaphorically
episode is
do
packed
with
with practical
sandwich.
tips
So
to
here
help
you
you
are
speak
in the
up
middle of two
confidently,
slices of bread.
clearly,
Those
and
slices
with
are your kids and your
compassion.
parents.
And also
essentially.
included is a
But
guided
there are
meditation
different
to
types
help
of
you feel more
sandwiches.
grounded
So
and
let's
confident
dig
when you
into
speak.
that. I hope you're not hungry.
It's totally
I
free.
hope you've had your lunch.
Click on the link in the
and this
episode
doesn't trigger your
description
hunger
to
response.
access today. Now,
You have to
on to
laugh
the
about
show.
it because some of these things are a lot to deal with, and laughing through it sometimes is a coping mechanism. Apparently, that's one of mine. So one of them is a traditional sandwich, which is, as I mentioned, to have
Adults
you
who
here.
are
in their 40s
we were just
and
talking
50s,
about some things we have in
and
common
they have
before
both
we
their
hit
parents
record,
and their children,
and I
that they
thought,
need to
let's go ahead
support.
and dive
That's
in
the
because we've got a
traditional.
lot of things we want to
There's also
cover.
what's known as
So let me
the
just
club
begin by
sandwich,
having you
which
tell
is
my
people
audience
in
a
their
little bit about
50s
yourself
and 60s,
and your background.
and they're between
Awesome.
aging
Thanks,
parents,
Jennifer. I'm so happy to be
adult
here.
children,
I'm Suzanne
and
Hanna,
possibly
a
grandchildren
lifelong
that they're
educator. I
needing
spent
to
25
support.
years
So
in
like a club
education.
sandwich, there's a stack,
90% of that
And
time
there's
was in
more than
public
one layer
education,
in
and
each
I
stack.
began as an English
So
teacher,
that's
a
the
high
club
school English
sandwich.
teacher.
And
I
then there's
moved
what's
from that
known as the
position
open
really
face
quickly
sandwich,
to
which
a
is
position
anyone
at a
who's
central
involved in
office
elder
where I was
care.
actually a
So maybe you're
program
not
director
caring for
for
your
English language arts
teenage,
for
late teen,
all the
or
middle
young
and high
adult
schools in the
children,
district, and it was
financially and
a
emotionally
district
and
with
all of
70
that.
plus
But
schools.
you
It was
are
a big
caring
job.
for
I'm still
an
not quite sure how I got it, but I
aging
did.
parent.
And
So
I did that, and then
all of these
after that, I
things,
moved into
whatever
administration
type
in
of
schools. So
sandwich
I became
you're
an
in,
assistant principal at a
if
middle
you're
school,
listening to
and
this
then
and
moved to a big
you
high school,
are
and then another big high
taking
school.
care of
And
your
my last
parents
year in
and
education
or your
was
kids at the same
as an
time,
assistant principal at a middle school,
you know,
which is
you're
always an
nodding your head.
interesting experience.
It's
yes.
hard.
And
It's hard on
and
so many levels.
I am a mother
So
of two kids. I have two
first,
teenagers.
before we
My
get
son's
into
in
that,
college, and my daughter's
let me
13.
explain a little bit more
And I've
about
been married for
why
24
this
years.
is so
We live
much
on
more
a
of a
farm
thing
in
now
North
than it has
Carolina
been
in
in
the
the past.
foothills, and
The
our house was
first
built in
is
1770.
that people
So
are
it's
having
quite
children
historic. It's on the
later in
National
life.
Historic Register, and we've
so
got
when their
chickens
children
and
are
lots of
getting
gardens
to
and
late
two
teens, young
Australian
adult,
shepherds.
and
So
they're going
just
to need
normal,
a little
fun
more support
family,
financially,
very lucky and blessed
potentially
in that
staying
regard
at
for
home,
sure.
which I'll get into in a
And
second.
right now, I'm excited because I
The
opened a new
grandparents
business
or
where
your
I am
parents
a life
are
coach for
older
college and
than they
teen
were.
girls.
So
And
my
so
parents
I
had
have
me when
taken
they were
my
in their early
experience in public
20s.
education and
And their
blended
parents
it
were only
with
20 years older than them,
certification
so
in
their parents
effective
were
liminal
40 when I
psychology.
was born.
So I help
And I think
girls
about that
work
right
through
now. I'm like,
anxiety,
having a
with their
grandkid at 40
mindset, just giving them a safe
seems
space
like,
because
wow, you've lived
we
a
all know
full
that
life.
teens
And at that time, of course,
thrive
I
when
was
they
young. I was like,
have
man,
strong
40's
relationships
old.
with trusted adults. So that's what I offer
But
to the
times have
girls,
changed.
and
People
I love
started
the
having
coaching
kids
job.
later
It's
in
my
life.
calling.
I
I
had
love
my
teenagers.
first child, my first daughter, when I was
It's
30.
always just been
Of
I'm
course,
a
my
magnet
parents,
for
as you know,
teenagers. I connect with
math-wise, were
them.
only
I think
20-ish
they're the
years
most
older than I am. So mine are pretty
discerning
young
and
compared to
interesting
many
and
of my peers,
emotionally
relatively,
available
but
people that I know.
not all situations
And
are
I
like
love
that.
their
So, of
honesty,
course,
and I love
that's
how
one of
they
the
can
reasons
sniff
we're
out
having
a
kids
fake in
later
any
in
room.
life. So that kind of
They're
adjusts
like
the
little hound
timeline.
dogs. Yeah, they're
The
amazing.
other
Yeah.
is that they so
And
many
that's one
of
of the
those kids,
reasons,
as they
there's
go off
many
to
of the
college, if
reasons
they
why
do,
I
or
wanted
they
to
move
have you
out,
on this
they come back
podcast because
they can't
you and
either
I
they
have
can't
so
afford
much
it
in
or they're
common
still
with
trying to
our
figure themselves
background in
out.
education.
So these are
and
known
our
as boomerang kids.
passion
Like they go
for
away,
helping
but then
teenagers.
they come back.
Of
And
course,
Yeah.
you
you know what?
directly
I'm all
help the
for,
teenagers,
like,
and I've done that,
having a
and I
long-term
still do that
relationship
in the
with your
current, but I
kids.
really
And I
also
actually
focus on
met
the
someone
parents.
who
And
I'm
so
inviting on a
Yeah.
I
podcast.
definitely wanted to
coming
bring
up
you
pretty
on
soon.
because you
But
have
she
a scope
studies
of
and
experience
is
that
part
I
of
don't, and that's working
teaching
in
about
middle school and
traditional
high
communal
school.
family
So I
living
have a background
to
in
where there's
education, of
multi-generations
course,
and the
and
benefit
I
of
have
it.
teens myself.
But this, of course, is
But
one of the
you're coming from the
potential
perspective
strains
of
is if you
working
don't have
in
that standard of
public
expectation
education
in your
with
family
this
line where
demographic.
we
So
are
I knew you would have a lot of really great things to add and offer to my
support each
audience.
other.
So thank you so much
It
for
really
coming
does
on.
fall on to
Yes,
the
thank you.
generation that is working.
I wonder
and has
if
the physical.
I'm
ability
sure there are
and mental
people
ability to
listening
care
who
for
have never
everyone.
heard of.
So they
and
go
you're gonna
away
have
and they
to
come
remind
back.
me,
And
liminal
they may or may not have a
psychology.
job at that point.
What was that?
Yes.
And that has
It's
to do with
okay.
the economy.
It's
the
effective
way
liminal
things cost
psychology.
so much and buying
And so
houses and
effective,
rent
like the normal
all
word
of the
effective,
things
and
that have
liminal
shifted
is a word that
since
seems to have
you and
come
I
around
were
in
that
our
age.
space.
It's not as easy to live
more
independently.
now than I've ever heard it. It
and
means
then
like
also the
when
job
you're
market,
in betwixt
depending
and
on what they
between.
studied
So
or what
it's
they
the
want
space
to do,
where
there may not
change
be a
tends
job
to
for
happen.
them.
It's
So
when
they're coming back.
you know, when you're between
Gone are
two
the
big
days
spaces,
for many
that's when
people
you're
of
the
where they're
most ripe
18
for
and you're
change
like,
and for
"Boop,
understanding really
okay,
who
bye,
you are.
I'm kicking you out
And
of
so
the
the
nest.
psychology behind it is that
That doesn't really happen
it's
as
really the
much anymore.
study
So,
of
of course,
human
that's going to
behavior
add to
and the
the
science of
likelihood
self.
of the sandwich
And so it's helping
situation
people
happening.
understand
And so
how they feel, and that emotions
another
drive
thing
behavior.
adding to it is on
So
the other
I
end,
really loved
life
this because
expectancy is
in my
getting
experience, I
longer.
had so many
And,
girls
which is
suffering
great.
in
So
my
people are
office.
getting the health care
And
that
so
they
many girls
need,
suffering
and
in
there's
classrooms
medical
that I've visited, and in the
advancements
hallways
that
and in
really
the
provide for a
cafeteria.
longer life.
And I mean,
But
Jennifer, I
that
would say
does
90%
make it so that
of
your
the
parents
of
are
the
alive older and maybe
like
need your
health
help for a
emergency
little
calls
bit
I would
longer.
get to classrooms would be
So
girls
it
having
puts
panic
you
attacks.
smack
And
dab
I would
in the
sit on
middle,
the
taking
floor
care
with so
of
many
the two.
girls,
And
walk
by
around the school
taking
with
care
them,
of,
you know,
I
help
mean
calm them down. And
providing
it
your
just,
emotional
it killed my
support
soul
and
to
your
see these
financial
kids suffering.
support,
And
depending
girls would
on
be
the
in my
situation
office
that you're in.
just crumbling under
Maybe
pressure.
your parents didn't
And
set
pressure not
themselves
only
up
from,
financially
the
to be able
school,
to
but
be
from their
independent.
parents
So you
and
may have
from
to pay for their
society
care.
and from
You
the
may have
media.
to pay for
And
their
their
living
phones were
costs. You may have to
diminishing
go to the
all of
grocery
their
store for them. So
self-confidence.
you're really
And the pressure they
providing
were
your
putting on
energy
themselves was
and your
breaking my
emotional
heart.
care, but
And
you're
I kept
also
telling my
likely
colleagues, like I remember
providing or
talking to the
sometimes
social workers
providing
and the counselors and
financial
just saying,
support.
guys, we're not doing enough for these
So
girls.
all of
They're
this,
suffering.
all
And
of
I
this
would have all these precious
caretaking
parents in my
on both
office, just
ends,
with boxes of
if
tissue,
it were to just be one or
frustrated,
the other,
doing
is
all
hard
the right
enough.
things. You know,
It's
just
enough
good
of
people doing all the
a
right
giving of
things,
yourself.
but just unable to connect with their kid,
But when you have both
or
at the
unable
same
to
time,
understand,
it's
why
going
she
to
was
take its
suffering
toll.
so deeply
So
with such
some of
debilitating
the challenges
anxiety.
and results
And
that could
parents just
happen
needed help.
as you
And
become
as I said, I
part
talked
of
to
the
my
sandwich
colleagues, and I'm like,
generation
guys, we
is,
are
of
not
course,
serving these
financial
kids.
strain.
And
When you
and I
are financially
felt
supporting
this. I guess my
those
knowing
two
just knew
demographics
something
of
was
people,
coming.
those
And
two
then when I
family
learned
members
about
in your
effective
life.
liminal psychology, I thought
And
this can give
of
me
course,
the
the emotional
certification
stress
that
that
I
comes
need
with that.
to be able to work with kids one-on-one.
Part of that is
And
the
to be able to
reversal
have my
stress
own
of
business
you are
and
now
coach
caring
girls
for your
one-on-one,
caretaker,
and to help them
and that can really
understand that
take a
their
toll on
behavior is
you.
driven by their emotions.
And there's something called
and that
anticipatory
we can learn
grief,
so much about our emotions,
which explains
just
so
through
much
something as
of
simple
like
as naming our
that
emotions.
I know that
And
things are going
and
down
that,
this path,
through
and I know I'm
neuroplasticity
going to be
and
experiencing
through
this loss.
mindset shifts,
And
we
I'm
really have
actively
control
experiencing this
of
loss
how we
in
feel
watching my
and how
aging
we
parents
behave. And
lose
at
some of
48,
their
I know that.
ability
I wish
to
I'd
do the
known it when
things
I
that
was
they
15,
used to be able to
right?
do.
And so that's why
So
I think it's
there's
wonderful
role
to work with
reversal,
girls
and
and
there's
help
also
them
anticipatory
realize
grief
the
happening.
power that they have,
And
to
just watching
teach
that
them,
go through.
help them learn self-compassion.
Also,
and
as
to
a result
understand
of
that
all
how
the
they
energy
feel is
you're
perfectly
giving,
normal.
it's sometimes
And
easy to
and
just
it's
start
just their brain
neglecting your
responding in a way
self-care.
that brains respond.
So not having
so
the
I think-
capacity to
yeah.
prioritize sleep,
Normalizing
and healthy
is a big
eating,
part of
Yes.
it.
spending time with
There's
friends,
nothing wrong with you,
exercising,
and
taking
normalizing
care
it
of
and then
mental health.
understanding it and then having a plan for
It
how to
also
address
might
it so
have a
that it's
negative
not
impact on
Yes.
your
taking
relationships.
your piece and
Because when you're
impacting
fully
your quality of
taxed or
life.
when you're feeling drained,
Yeah,
it's hard for
absolutely.
you to be
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
fullest,
And just out of curiosity,
authentic,
when you
loving
were
self
in the
with the
educational
people who are
setting,
close to you.
you mentioned that
like
it
your
was mostly
spouse or
girls.
partner or your
Why do you
kids
think that is?
or your friends. So your
I
relationships
really thought
may
about
be
that,
suffering
having a
as a
teenage
result.
son. And
It's
I
also
think
sometimes harder to just manage all
girls,
of the obligations
like I was saying
in your
earlier,
life,
teenagers
like work,
in
or even
particular have a
prioritizing
discernment
things
that
like
others don't, but
hobbies
especially teenage
and
girls.
relationships
And
that
they
really
have
matter
this
to you.
level of,
And just a general
I don't know if it's
feeling
like
of
where they are
overwhelm and
developmentally,
excess
but they're
stress.
emotional.
And that
They're
all
emotionally
really boils
charged.
down to
And so I
caretaker
think
burnout.
that emotional
I've talked about
charge
burnout
is somehow
a couple of times on this episode, or no, on this
explicitly,
podcast, and on this
I guess,
episode because it
abused by
applies.
social media.
I've
It's
talked
like,
about
it's almost like
general
they're,
burnout, like
it
caregiving
preys
burnout, and I've
on
talked
this,
about mom burnout. But basically,
it
when you're
preys on
somebody
where
who's
they are
caring for
developmentally, if
the
that
needs
makes
of
any sense.
others,
I just feel like they're
this
just,
can happen. And so
and I
definitely
feel
go check
like
out
it's
those
created
podcasts
to do
if this
that,
is
so that makes me
something
really angry.
you're
But I
suspecting
feel
that
like
you're
that the girls
experiencing. But
are feeling
if you're not sure, some of the signs of caregiver
comparison,
burnout are
and they're
that
feeling
you're having new
the
feelings of anxiety.
the
So
constant
maybe you didn't
judgment of
really
themselves
struggle with
against
anxiety
others
too
and
much in the
against
past, but you're feeling more anxious
a
than
sense of
usual.
perfectionism. And we
New
know that
symptoms of
perfectionism is not
depression.
possible. Being perfect is
So
not
again,
possible.
maybe you never really
And
felt depressed before, but you're
I've
feeling it now.
worked with girls and discussing, but
You're
then
having
the difference
insomnia
between
or
like
difficulty
perfectionism
sleeping, and
and
you've never really
excellence.
had that before.
And like, let's
You're
talk.
more
Yeah,
frustrated,
excellence is so
angry, and
different. Like, let's
irritable
define
than
how
you
you
used
see
to be.
excellence.
Yeah.
And as
And
I'm listening to
because
this, I'm also
that's
like,
a
well, these are
verb,
also
and
symptoms of
perfectionism is like this
perimenopause.
pie in the sky
How
feeling.
fun
So I
that
think
we get to go through
it's. I
menopause
think that's why girls are
and being part
specifically
of the sandwich
more
generation at the
affected
same
by
time.
it. I
Like,
think their
oh,
emotionality.
chef's kiss.
Is that
So
a word?
fun.
Emotionality? I think I may have made
But
that
yes,
up. But
all
we'll
of
Maybe
these
it could be
techniques
applied to
are-
other things
it
too,
works.
but
There you
they're
go.
also signs of parental or caregiving burnout. You're getting sick
So you're
more
helping
often.
them
You may be
develop
gaining
coping
weight or losing weight.
strategies. And
You may have a new
this is
diagnosis of
kind of
heart
where I'd like to
disease or
go with
some
this
other health
conversation is
condition.
Okay.
there are healthy
You're
coping
withdrawing from your friends
strategies,
and
and there
family,
are
and you might
coping
be using
strategies we
unhealthy
use that are
coping
actually life
mechanisms like
detracting.
alcohol or
So
drugs.
Yeah.
before we get into
All of
the
these are
unhealthy coping
symptoms that
strategies,
there's something deeper
would
going
you
on.
just share
and
with us a little bit
that
about
something needs to
what
shift
you found to be helpful
as
for
much as
these
possible.
girls
So
who are feeling
let me get into
anxious
that.
in managing
if
that
you are in a
anxiety?
situation where you're like, man,
Sure.
I'm
I feel
going
like
through it right now. Here's some
girls
strategies.
really appreciate
And just like anything I talk about
knowing
with
the
this
science
podcast,
behind
it
anxiety.
really
And
starts
so
with
I
finding a
have like
balance
this real
between your
simple model where like I hold up my
for
hand
caring for
and
others
your brain
and
stems
your
here and your
obligation to
limbic
care for
system and your
yourself.
frontal lobe. And I explain to
And
girls,
if you missed
when
it, I did a live
your
last
bodies
week.
respond
I did a 5-day
as they would
live
have
in
back
the
when we were
Raising Happy
cave
Kids
women
parent
to
group
a
and
saber-tooth
also on
tiger. Our
Instagram
bodies produce
on
the
how to
chemicals,
set
the fight or
healthy
flight,
boundaries without
and
the
our brains
guilt.
literally go offline.
And it
We
was
flip our
really
lid. And
associated
so
with how to
the part of your brain
prioritize
that thinks about
your
thinking is not
values
thinking about
and what's
thinking.
important to you
Yes.
this holiday
And
season,
the parts
so you
of
can
your
actually
brain
really
that
enjoy
make
it.
you feel anxiety,
Definitely
like
go
your
check
heart
it out
racing,
if you are in the group
feeling short of
or
breath,
if you're following me on
hands
Instagram.
feeling tingly.
But
There's
it
a
applies in this
science
situation
behind why
too,
your body responds
because
that way, and
how
why
you
your
do one
nervous
thing is
system
how you
does,
do all
and to learn
things.
how
So if you have trouble
to
setting
hack that with
boundaries
something as
with
simple as
this
breathing
caregiving role,
techniques with like
you likely
box
struggle with it
breathing,
in
or
other
I think
areas
breathing
as well.
techniques girls are always
So
like, really, Suzanne? And I'm like, no,
definitely
really, they
finding
really
a
work. And so I have
balance
to like prove it to them.
is
We have to
a
practice.
really
And
important number
yeah,
one
that's why I love
strategy.
teenage girls, because they're so
And
skeptical.
another
They're like,
few things that could help
and
is if you
and
have
so
an
when
older
you can
teen or
hack
like a
your
young
nervous
adult
system and calm yourself
who's
down,
ready
your
to be
brain goes back
independent,
online,
but maybe
and your brain's like this
isn't
happy
quite
little
there yet,
brain again.
let
And
your
so
priority be
working through
instead
the
of I'm
science
caring
helps
for them
them
and taking care
become
of all
more
of their needs
curious
to
about
I'm
their
helping
future
them find a
reactions.
job.
And so I
I'm
like to
helping
give
them
girls,
generate income so that
I call
I
it
don't
not
have to
homework
pay for
because
their
it's not
stuff.
homework, but it
And
is
yes,
an
that may
assignment
mean that they're
to
going to live with you
become
for a
more
while just
curious
to save
about
money.
how
But
when you
prioritizing
feel
helping
your
them get a job
anxiety rise,
can definitely
where
take the
does it
strain
land
off
in your
of you
body?
financially and
And I explained to
energetically.
them, like, mine lands in my throat.
Also, if
It's
your
so weird.
parents
It's like I've
are
been
able to
yelling
live with
at
you.
like a
Now,
concert or
I
a
know
game,
not all
like some
situations are going to allow
some
for
big
that.
contentious game. I've been
You may
screaming
not
for
have
3
the room
hours.
for
It's the
that in your
strangest
house.
feeling. And
You may
so
not want
they
that to
they are to
happen.
pay attention to where it
Totally
lands.
understandable, but if it
And
can,
then
it can save a little
wherever
money
that
and
lands
probably
is
some
like your
time
body's signal to
if
you.
you're not needing
And
to
so
drive to
my
do the
goal
things
is
and to
for
visit
girls
them
to
and to
feel
care
more
for
in
them
touch
if they can live
with
with
their
you.
bodies, because our bodies are
That's where that
natural alarm
intergenerational living
systems,
could come in.
and we can calm
And also
ourselves
with the
down
boundaries,
through
if you
breathing.
have
We
the
can tell our
capacity to
nervous
do that.
systems it's okay,
If you
and our brain
don't,
can get back online. So we
looking
can
for
think more
ways that you can get
logically,
support
and we
outside,
cannot
so you're
have
not the one
such
doing it all.
erratic response.
Like
Because I
caregiving
know
services
girls
that
get really
can
frustrated
come
with
and
their
support
erratic
your parents,
responses.
whether it's
Living with teenagers
more
myself, it's hard as a
involved,
parent
whether
when they
they're
have
on
erratic
a regular
responses,
basis,
and as
or
a
maybe they
parent,
just come from time to time to check in.
from the
There's
moment
Meals
we
on Wheels, like
get
organizations
pregnant
like
with our
that,
kids, we're
or
carrying these
maybe
humans.
somebody who
We
does
keep them alive, we
shopping
love them,
for
we
your
protect them,
parents,
and then all of a
or maybe a
sudden
meal
they
delivery
want to be
service.
individuals,
So
and they
finding
individuate and
ways
push
to where
themselves
they
away,
can
and they
get
become
support so that
independent,
you're
and then they
not
start
having
yelling
to
at
do
us.
it all.
And it's just
Or
this
having like
whole
a
weird
medical
situation,
alert system
and it's
so
hard
that
as a
you're not
parent
on
to
edge
not
all of the
meet
time. Like, are they okay?
your
Are they okay?
daughter's
So that they can get
emotional
the support
state.
they need if there
Yes.
is an emergency.
And so
It takes the the
and I
stress
think
off of you a
and
little
girls,
bit.
when they become aware of
And
that
also
heightened
just
emotional
to
state,
be really
they realize
clear
that they have
with whoever it is
have
you're
the option,
supporting
they have the
about how much you can
responsibility,
give,
which is not
how
a
much
scary word.
time,
It's
how
their
much
ability
money,
to
and be very
respond. You
clear with
have the
that
ability to
and be
respond to
willing
this
to
by
stick with
calming
it
yourself
just to
down
protect yourself.
and taking control of yourself. You
And
can do
then
this. You have this power.
if this is really
And I think
something you
that's such
struggle
a
with,
that's like the number one thing
whether
I
it's
want
setting
girls to understand
boundaries
is that
or how
you do
to
have the
manage
power within
the
yourself
strain that
to
comes with
calm
being a
yourself
caretaker
and to get your
yes,
brain working
of your
again.
teen, of your kids, of your parents,
and
sandwich
basically what I'm
generation
hearing
or
from
not,
you is it's
to be able to have
educating,
a
so
space to talk
understanding
about it.
what's going on.
And this is one of the things that we
awareness of how it
caregivers
lands
usually
for you
talk about last is
specifically, and then
how we're going to
strategizing
take care of
on how to
ourselves through it all,
proactively
because
care for
we're seeing the
yourself
need
so
in
that
the
it
other
doesn't sweep
person,
you away in
and we're
those
like, oh, I'll
moments.
take care of myself when
Yes,
this is
absolutely.
not
And the
such an
awareness
issue
is the
anymore.
key.
But I heard something the other
And
day was
naming the
just a
emotion
reminder to
and
me
understanding it
of like,
and
and it has to
accepting
do
it
with
and saying,
meditation.
hey, anxiety, there
If
you
you
are.
don't have
You're not the
Yes.
beast I
10
thought you
minutes to
were.
meditate,
You are
you
my
need to
body
set
actually
aside
trying to take
an
care of
hour to
itself. Because if
meditate.
I were still a cave woman,
Like, if
this
you don't have
response
10
would help me
minutes,
get away from the
you need to
saber-tooth tiger.
reprioritize
So I mean,
and get
evolutionarily,
even
it's
more
worked for
time,
us, right? And
right?
so I feel
Give
like
to
our
yourself
brain and your
more
brain's
if you
trying
feel
to
like you
help
don't
you.
have
And so
enough.
when you say, all right, girl,
And as we're
I
talking
hear
to
you, I see
somebody,
you. I'm going to
having
calm
a
you down,
space to
and
just
we're going to
clear it
figure this
out
out together. So it's almost
where
like
you don't have to feel
teaching the
judged,
girls the
and
parts of themselves
really being
that work
able
together,
to
and
share and
you can love
express your
your
needs
anxiety.
with
I know it
that
sounds
family
crazy at
member
first,
or
but
those
you can
family
embrace it.
members with
And I
compassion and
think
without the
girls that
guilt.
have heightened
It can take
anxiety
a
are our
huge
sensitive
mental load
girls,
off
and our
and
sensitive girls
energetic
are the ones
load
that change
off.
the world.
Yeah.
They're the
And also
ones
just
that
recognize
can
this
they're
is a tough
empaths.
stage of parenting.
They love
So many
hard,
people
and
talk about
they're
when the
loyal,
kids are
and they're
babies and when they're
brilliant, and
toddlers and the terrible twos.
they're the
It's
ones
like,
that,
yeah,
to
that's
me,
tough.
they're what we've been
But this
waiting
is
for.
tough on a
Yes.
And
different
yeah,
level. It's like an
You and I
emotional
completely agree on
toughness
that, and we're on the same
that we
page
go
with
through
that.
at this phase.
And
Because when
really,
you're
the
caring
point
for
is
your
to be able
teen and
to
you're also
foster and
responsible
hone
for
in that special gift
whether
that
it's
they
your
have,
parents or other
so
things
that
in
the
your life,
challenging parts of it
it's
don't
hard to prioritize
undermine
yourself,
their ability to
eat the healthy
function
food and spend time
effectively
with people who
and
let
do
you up
what they
and
want to do
engage in all of
ultimately
those
in this
right.
world and in
activities
their
that you
life.
love, because it's like, I need to
And
care for them first.
I love how you're
And
explaining
just
how
know, if
all
you're
of this
feeling that
is
strain, I'm
really
here for
just
you.
creating
If
a
you're feeling
space
maxed out,
for them
I'm here for
to
you.
be honest
And
with
as
it
your
and
partner,
not
I can
fight
help you sort
against
through
it,
those challenges
Yes.
you're
because that
having,
can
and
essentially
just make
that
a
can cause
simple,
even more levels of anxiety
actionable
and stress and
plan
tension
to
and make
feel
it
more
even worse.
balanced in your life, to
Whereas
feel
we
more in control,
put our arm around it and
more
walk
grace,
alongside it
and
and
more
say, hey, this
ease,
is a part of
even
me. I
though
see you
things are
there.
challenging,
And
because
I'm also going to
you
care
can
for
have
you
both
through
at the
this.
same time.
And we're
You
partners.
can have a challenging
Right.
situation
We live
and
together.
handle it with grace and
We're
ease at the same
roomies.
time.
You're
And
my
I
roomie
can
that I
help you bridge
asked
that
for.
gap.
That's
You're
right.
here.
And I'm enrolling new
Yes.
clients right now for now and
Yeah.
for next year.
So
Space is limited.
absolutely
So
fantastic.
if
And
you
so
are looking for
another
support
one of the
with
things,
this,
the reasons why I wanted
schedule
to
a
bring you on this
consultation with
podcast,
me. We'll get on the
it
phone. We'll
revolves
talk about
around
what's going on. And I
finding
will share with you
coping
step by
mechanisms
step
that
how we
aren't
can work
exactly
together
healthy.
to help
One of
bring
which
more
is
ease
alcohol.
and more flow into
And
your life.
I know personally
And we
from
can
my
start right
perspective,
away.
alcohol
Or
is
if you
something
want to
that
give yourself a
I
really
have
great
turned to in the
holiday
past when I've been
present,
feeling anxious
now is the perfect
to
time to
like
do
quell
so.
the
So
anxiety. And
click the link in the show
fortunately, I'm not really at the
description
place where I'm
to
doing that anymore.
secure your
And I
time,
know,
and we'll connect.
especially
And I
for the
look forward to hearing from
younger
you.
generation,
Thanks for tuning
as
in.
they're still
We'll see you next
learning
time.
about themselves, and especially at that age, high school. And I know you work mostly with college students, but that same adolescent, I'm still figuring out who I am stage, it can be really tempting
Yes.
to just, hey, you know what, I'm feeling anxious. I'm going to go to this party and I'm going to drink alcohol and to
Right.
excess. And we've connected on your history of becoming
hmm
sober, and
Uh-huh.
that's another part of the layer of it that I wanted to bring on. So if we could just shift a little bit into the context of alcohol use, and
Okay.
if you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit about your experience with it, and then we can talk a little bit about how that could apply to parents and also teenagers.
Oh, yes, certainly. I love to talk about it. I feel like that because I bring my presence is no shame and no judgment when it comes to conversations around alcohol and any substance use. I think that that's part of the reason kids suffer is because of the shame that's connected with it, and the reason why they don't communicate with their parents and other adults, and they don't seek help when they need it, because we have a culture that shames people, and it's unfortunate. But so I have chosen to stop drinking. I have been alcohol free for over 2 years now, and it's been wonderful. It's one of the best decisions I've ever made for myself as an adult. And I am not an alcoholic. I've never had a DUI. I've never lost a job. I've never had a relationship end or have issues because of alcohol. So, when you tell people you stop drinking, they automatically assume that, they picture like somebody on the street corner with a paper bag, which is so sad. Because
Yeah.
number one, the person on the street corner with a paper bag doesn't want to be there either, right? Like where is our compassion? But
Yeah.
also, there's an automatic shame response to it. And so, I grew up with a normal family. I was an only child to two good time, fun parents. My parents were always the first people on the dance floor. Super fun. My mom loved wine or still loves wine. My dad drinks beer. Like that's just their culture. Drinking was just something that was fun. And so, I went, um, I never have thrown up from drinking in my whole like life. It's so interesting. And so I went to college and had fun. I was in college in the 90s where it was just like everybody drank and had fun. And then where I went to graduate school was another fun, school where, big football team and tailgating and just fun. And so when I was a young teacher. I had a group of teachers that we would go out with after, the Friday night football games, or maybe like after a Thursday or whatever, and we'd go to a bar and have a few drinks and just nothing. I didn't question it, just kept living. High achieving person, always, had to, I'm always one of those people that had to get straight A's, right? And so I fought the perfectionism. And so I realized moving into like my 20s and 30s when I had no issue with it, but I was recognizing that I had anxiety and because I'm so driven and I was very anxious. And so moving into like my later 30s, I believe there was a confluence of a lot of things. And I think one of those is working with perimenopause and hormone changes. And, being a high school assistant principal with two children, renovating, an 18th century farmhouse. And I mean, running 10Ks. I'm like, what else am I supposed to do? Right. Like I was like, I'm going to can tomatoes this weekend. Like I was doing too much. And so alcohol was my friend. And
Mhm.
so when I had a hard day at school with everything that would happen, I mean, it's crazy how just one day in the life of an assistant principal can be. Like that's a whole other podcast we'll have to have. I can tell you so many
Can
stories.
only
And so,
imagine.
and so I would come home and I would need to like come down from that experience from having
Mhm.
been under, from things like being under fluorescent lights all day and, with 2,200 humans and teenagers, no doubt. And
Yeah.
so wine was the thing. I would come in the house with my kids, get them started with homework, start dinner, and I would pour a glass of wine. And it
Yeah.
was just what I thought was self-care. And
Yeah.
so, and I didn't know until I started reading and paying attention. I remember reading somewhere that your liver needs a break, that you should take. People that drink should have at least three consecutive non-drinking days a week in order for your liver to rebound from drinking. And I was like, okay, cool, that's easy. I mean, I had two kids and breastfed two kids and I didn't drink. Like I can do this.
Yeah.
But let me tell you that the first day, I don't know if it was the first day, but in my memory of this is when I told myself I couldn't drink, I was
Mhm.
so mad. I felt deprived. And I was like, wait a minute, I do everything else right. Why can't I have a glass of Chardonnay? Like, that is my reward. That is how I calm myself. That's going to help me sleep. It's going to help me feel better. The whole mommy wine culture runs rampant, right? Like, that's a big thing.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was suffering from what I know now as cognitive dissonance,
Uh-huh.
where my conscious brain knew that I probably shouldn't be drinking, but
Mhm.
my unconscious brain was like, screw it, Suzanne. Like you've had a hard day and you do everything right. And who cares? It's
Yeah.
Chardonnay. Who cares? And so I had this battle going on in my head. And so I didn't have I got frustrated with alcohol. My relationship with it started to like deteriorate because I was thinking about it all the time. And I
Yeah.
was like, why am I thinking about alcohol when I don't necessarily have a drinking problem? And so an anxious brain like mine went into like this spiral with that. And so I came across in 2018 Annie Grace's The Alcohol Experiment.
Mhm.
And I was really interested, intrigued by it because the first part of it is nothing's wrong with you,
Yeah.
and take a 30-day break. And so it was like a 30-day break, and I was like, you know what, I want to do this because it was like September, the end of summer, where I had had a month off and I'd had fun, vacation, and just overindulging on food and wine. It's like at the end of summer, I wanted like grilled chicken salads and water. Like I felt gross at the end of every summer, and so I was like, okay, 30-day break, and so I loved it. I didn't drink for 30 days and every day there was an app at that point. It was like one of her first iterations of this. And every day you break up or you break down an unconscious belief you have about alcohol to include alcohol tastes good. Alcohol helps me sleep.
Mhm.
Alcohol makes me more social. You know, alcohol calms my anxiety, all of these things. And you learn the science behind it. And so what happens is it slowly changes your unconscious beliefs about it. And so during this time, my anxiety plummeted. I slept like a baby.
Oh,
I it was crazy. I was like, "What is this?" I had so much energy, I annoyed myself. I was like, "What is this?" And and it was like my brain went back online. Because was suffering from some brain fog, and I've always been very quick on my feet, and I did not like that my brain wasn't working. That was really frustrating for me. And so I loved it. And so at the end of it, I was like, wait a minute. Like this goes against, all like 30 some years of my life when this was supposed to be a fun thing. And so I actually moderated for a while after that because I was
okay.
just kind of over it. And I was like, oh, I don't feel like it. And I had, gotten out of the habit. But then the holidays hit and, you start drinking again with family and blah, blah, blah. And so, um, but I knew a fire was lit inside. And I was
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna not drink one day. And I remember I was like quizzing my family. I was like, "So, if I stop drinking, are you still gonna like me?" And they're like, "Of
Love it.
course we are, but why would you do that?" And I'm like, "I don't know, but there's something inside of me." And so all the thought leaders that I love, like Brene Brown,
Mhm.
Glennon Doyle, like the women that I revere and read are all non-drinkers. And I
Yeah.
started to think, there's something to this, right?
Mhm.
And so then during the pandemic, I decided to take another break. So I
Okay.
went like 70 some days without drinking during COVID, right?
Which
Which
is
was,
huge.
I mean, what is that, right? Like, yeah. And so I felt great. And so something in me was like, you're going to stop. You're going to
Yeah.
stop one day. And so I had like this slow goodbye because it was like a lifestyle I had to let go of. And so
Yeah.
I had this amazing morning. I went on this vacation with my husband on our anniversary trip, and we were on Isle of Palms in South Carolina, a beautiful place. And
Mhm.
I had such anxiety that weekend. Like it was like this burning just panic inside of me. And I had no reason to be anxious. I was with my favorite person on the planet. My
Mhm.
kids were safe at my house with my dogs and my in laws. Everything was fine. I was dying inside. Went out on the beach one morning, couldn't sleep, left my husband because I was like, just sleep because I'm rolling around like a crazy person. So I went on the beach and I was walking and I was like, what is wrong with me? I am an anxious mess. And I don't know, Jennifer, it was the most beautiful moment of my life. And the sun was coming up, and I had this peace just land on me. And I thought, Suzanne, you never let anybody else down in your whole life. You don't let your husband down. You don't let your kids down. You don't let your students down, the teachers. Like you work, work, work. Why do you keep letting yourself down? And I was like, I'm not anymore. I've got my own back. And that was it. And that was over 2 years ago. And so it's been like the strangest journey, but most beautiful journey of my life. And so I've learned how to actually coach people through stopping drinking alcohol through this whole process. I'm a certified This Naked Mind coach, which is, who knew? Yeah.
That's incredible. And it all really starts with curiosity around things and awareness.
Yes.
Just like what you're teaching your clients that you work with on anxiety, it works the same way with everything. Is
Yes.
having this open-minded awareness of an evaluation, self-evaluation is how is
Mm.
this impacting my life? Is this what I want to continue doing? And
Yes.
the thing too that you brought up is that discomfort that came with the change initially.
Yes.
Even though it was something you were doing on purpose and you wanted, there was like alarms going off. Like, and same thing with the high achieving, perfectionistic,
Hmm.
very motivated, the one who does it, especially women who are the nurturers and do it all, take
Yes.
care of the house and the kids and everything. I
Right.
deserve this glass of wine. I worked hard
Hmm.
and I need this break. And
Yes.
then even if you're consciously deciding, this is not serving me, I'm just going to, give it a break, you still have that voice in your head. Well, gosh, well,
Right.
what the heck do I get if I don't get this? Like I deserve something,
Right.
right?
Yes.
And to be able to experience and witness that discomfort with curiosity and compassion
Hmm.
and continue forward, even though you know that discomfort is there and it's pushing against, right? The
Yes.
willingness or the desire to change. So,
Right. And I think I had to come to terms with that part of me that she thought the drinker in me thought she was taking care of me.
Yeah.
she thought that part of me was like, Suzanne, you have worked hard. This is your boundary. This is, you come home. So now you can be a mom and
Yeah.
not be an assistant principal.
Yeah.
Now you can relax. It's like, now you can go on vacation. You're on vacation now. It's not vacation until you pour your first drink. Right. And so, yeah, it was like this part of me was what she was protecting me and doing what she knew that she thought was best for me. And
Yeah.
so, and I think a lot of people when they first like stop drinking, they'll name the the craving or the drinker. Like they'll name her like the wine witch or like because you name that other part. And so I never liked that because I didn't think it was a bad thing. Like I didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah.
Even as like an educated person, I didn't know. So it's very interesting how that works. But so accepting that girl inside of me was trying to calm my anxiety and learning that alcohol makes your body create crazy levels of cortisol, which
Mhm.
is the stress hormone. And so, but that doesn't happen until hours after you've consumed the alcohol. So
Mhm.
alcohol is a depressant, but your brain's always searching for homeostasis. Like your brain wants to be balanced. And
Mhm.
alcohol is the depressant. Well, it's a depressant and a stimulant. It's all the way around. It's not a good thing, but your brain responds and produces like dynorphin, which is this chemical. It's like actually a peptide that has reactions in your body, and then cortisol is produced later. So that's why, like, if you wake up at 3 in the morning after drinking, you have to go to the bathroom, and then your mind just is an overdrive. And it's
Yeah.
because your body is responding to the depressant with the stimulant, just
Right.
for that because it wants the balance. And so the next day anxiety is real. Like a
Yeah.
hangover with anxiety is a real
Yep.
thing. And I never had like debilitating hangovers because I didn't drink enough for that. So I had when I did drink, I'd have like micro hangovers, right?
Yeah.
So it was like this little it was just enough where I was tired and
Mhm.
where and it would just amp my anxiety up just a little bit, but I didn't understand that it was the alcohol that was causing that. And
Yeah.
so, like you said, the curiosity around it, the awareness and approaching it with no shame.
Mhm.
And yeah.
That's really what it is, and this is how my listeners, if they're listening and they're nodding their head, yeah, I totally relate to all of this. And of course, this is a podcast for parents of teenagers, but the thread does interweave between
Yes.
parental behavior and teen behavior. So if
Mhm.
teenagers are raised in a family where drinking is normalized, and again, there's no judgment. I'm not saying that drinking is
Right.
bad. You can't drink. If you drink, you're bad. But what I'm saying is that to be aware of if you are drinking, the impact it's having on you, and then
Mhm.
also the impact it's having on your kids. So to
Right.
speak to that with the clients you work with, does this come up? Alcohol use? I can imagine it does, especially in college. And tell me a little bit more about how the conversations around that go with the teen girls that you work with.
Yes, it does come up. And with college drinking, it's binge drinking.
Yeah.
And it's not, they're not sitting around at a wine bar having a glass of Chardonnay. I mean, they're carrying those stupid Borg things,
Oh
and
my
I can't with that. I tell them, I'm like, I'm embarrassed to even say that word. I'm not
I
saying it.
know, and
We're
I'm
s-
so
we're
proud. I'm
starting
like,
talking
"You're
about it,
so proud," but I'm like impressed that you know it. But of course, I know it too.
and they decorate them. What is
They do.
happening?
Yeah.
What is this?
And it's
I need
hydrating.
this to stop. Oh, I need this to stop. I can't. And
I
so
hear
I can't. And so binge drinking is so damaging. And it's damaging because first of all, you are ingesting a neurotoxin, which is taking away your ability to make good decisions, and it's taking away your inhibitions. And so girls put themselves in these situations where they, sometimes they'll wake up places where they didn't remember going to sleep, and or the next morning they will have forgotten a several hour period. And
you.
these blackouts are harmful and on many levels,
Yeah.
but not knowing what you're doing is a big deal.
Yeah.
And also having girls understand that their brains are still forming through the
Mm.
age of like 22, 23. And
Yeah.
so when you introduce, ethanol, because that's what alcohol is, like we just
Mhm.
add sugar and things to make it taste good, but it's ethanol and it's a neurotoxin and it's a carcinogen. It's all the bad things, right? But it's
Yeah.
sold to us as something that is good and it's what people do and the pressure is there. But it goes back to what you so sagely said a little while ago. It's about curiosity, and it's about being curious about when you drink, how you felt when you drank, Like I don't tell the girls to stop. I'm like, you do you, honey. Like, and I don't tell anybody to stop drinking. Like, it's your life. You do what you want. And I just because I haven't had alcohol in 2 years doesn't mean like 2 years down the road, if I'm in Italy, I'm not gonna have a glass of wine, right? Like I'm not, you know what I'm saying? Like I don't even I just wanted to be free of thinking about it. And so I don't think about it, and that's what I like. But so I tell the girls, be curious. Like before you drink, think about how you feel. After your first one, how are you feeling? After your second, however many, pay
Yeah.
attention to the people around you, how they're acting. And then the next day, I want to talk to you about how you feel. And do you have regret? How does your body feel physically? How is this affecting your studies? Because, kids are going to class super hungover or not
Yeah.
going at all. And
Mm.
they're just like, they're cognitively not there because their brains are, processing this chemical, or
Yeah.
this, and it's so it begins with curiosity, and as with all things with teenagers, they gotta think it's their idea, right? They have to
Yep.
come to the conclusion on their own, and
Right.
so I'm more of like a guide,
Uh-huh.
and here's some information. Think about this. What do you
Yep.
think about this?
Mm.
And I like to break down the unconscious beliefs.
Mm.
Um, for instance, like alcohol tastes good, right?
Yeah.
Like we go back to, the first time you tried it, how did it taste? They're like, oh,
Yeah.
Susanna was nasty. Ugh," and I'm
Uh-huh.
like, well, I remember the first time I like sipped my dad's Coors Light and I was like, oh my God, it's like
What
vinegar.
is this?
And it's so gross, right? So we talk about the taste. And then I tell them about my great uncle Max, who said that if we drank for the taste, we'd all be drinking chocolate milkshakes.
That's a
And
good point.
so, yeah. And so we just kind of, unpack the unconscious beliefs. And
Yeah.
it's a slow process, but like I said before, the girls have such discernment and they want to
Mhm.
be healthy. And I have found too that this generation is a lot more health conscious and they are a lot more conscious of the negative effects of alcohol. And I have
Mhm.
girls reach out to me that say, Suzanne, I don't drink. And thank you for talking about how it's
Mm.
okay. And thank you for, celebrating that there you can have as much fun or a lot more fun by not
Yeah.
drinking. And
Yeah.
so I'm really proud of this generation.
Yeah.
Um, because I
I
don't even remember people in college who didn't drink. I mean,
if
that's so
they
sad
were
about it.
there, I didn't hang out with them.
I don't know. It's so bad. I bet they were there having fun.
I mean, yeah. So I all of these strategies that you're using with your
Mhm.
clients, these are direct strategies that I am nodding my head in agreement parents can use with their teen. Because like
Yes.
you said, it needs to be the teenager's idea to
Yes.
not do it. Whereas if you say you can't drink, if you do this, you're going to be in big trouble. Teenagers are gonna do what they're gonna do, and if
Yes.
they know that they're gonna get in trouble, they're just gonna lie and hide.
They
You
are.
don't want that. And so to be able to take the coach approach, TM, I just created this,
Yeah.
and let them know, "Hey, listen, you're gonna make these decisions,
Mhm.
but being able to walk them through the awareness. Some teenagers may be willing to do that with their parents, some may not, which is why it's
Right.
so great to have an outsider, a trusted adult that they could
Yes.
process these things with. It's so incredibly amazing. And to be able to do that with something that has such strong assumptions associated with it and judgments like
Mhm.
alcohol and going to a party. And if you're not drinking, then what does that mean about you and the discomfort? And being able to plan in advance and talk about how to handle the discomfort of being the only person at the
Yes.
party who's not drinking, how to handle what people ask you, why you're not drinking. And this
Yes.
applies to adults and the teens,
Yes.
and
This crosses the lines. Yeah.
it
This is
really
all the
does.
humans. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and just like what you said when you were talking about how you made the decision to stop drinking, then you became somebody to help walk people through that as well.
Mhm.
And it's the same thing you're doing with the girls that you work with. To be able to support someone through something, you need to know and be able to empathize and understand and potentially have gone
Mhm.
through it yourself. And so,
Right.
whether parents have done that or not, it all really does come down to the empathy, the understanding, the curiosity, and that's where the connection is with all of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Certainly. And you can't and willpower doesn't work.
Mm.
Willpower can work, but it runs out. And our behavior is driven by our emotions. And
Yeah.
so, positive behavior change is possible when you change your emotions behind it. And
Mm.
so that works, like I was saying, for all the humans, for the
Yep.
teenagers and their parents. And
Yeah.
so, and I think healthy conversations about alcohol are essential. And and it's difficult for me to have conversations with people when they're like, oh, my house is the place where kids can drink because at least I know they're safe. And they'll ask me what I think about that. And I'm like, well, do you want to know the truth? Because, I mean, because kids, are you trying to be cool?
Yeah.
Because the kids are only at your house because that's where they know they can drink,
Yeah.
right? And they're
Mhm.
gonna they're gonna laugh and be nicer to you because you're letting them do what they want to do.
Mhm.
And that's just and that's in my opinion, that's not healthy for the kids.
Yeah.
And it's illegal
Yep.
and it's dangerous. And
Yeah.
so, but then also the other side is, some parents are like, well, Suzanne, I know my daughter's drinking and she lies and goes and finds ways to do it.
Yeah.
And like you said, that's what kids do. That's what
Yeah.
teenagers do. And that's why they're such frustrating little creatures, right? And
Yeah.
that's why parents call us because and that's why we because it having, like you said, the neutral third party
Yeah.
that can be honest and say,
Mhm.
okay, our conversation is not something I'm going to talk to your parents about. Like, this is between
Mhm.
us, but this is
Mhm.
what you need to know, sweet girl. Like, this is the truth and it's up to you. And girls especially love to feel empowered and love to feel that they own their decisions. And
Yep.
they do. And
Mhm.
and as a parent, it's hard to let go and let them do that. But
Mhm.
as coaches can say, this is your decision. This is
Yeah.
your responsibility. And
Yeah.
responsibility is a beautiful, freeing thing.
Yeah.
Like you're able to do this. You're able to make this yours.
Yeah.
And yeah,
That's such a great way of putting it. And it really does come down to sending the message that ultimately you are the one in charge of what you decide to do and what you decide not to do in anything.
right.
And that's what these conversations are all about. And I sense that you and I could probably talk for hours on
Yes.
all of these topics.
Absolutely.
And but we've touched on some really important things here, and I am so glad that you came on and shared your story and that your strategies that you use with the girls. And of course, I'm going to put the links to everything so people can know how to find you and reach you in the show notes and everything. But if someone is hearing this and thinking, I really would like to work with her, tell me how you work with people and just give a little overview of that, what that might look like.
Okay. I work with teenage and college girls, so ages like 13 to 23. And I offer coaching packages where we have one on one sessions via Zoom. And then I also have communications with the girls between sessions. And the three pillars of my business are self compassion, self reliance, and self confidence. So those are the three pillars we work on. And we begin with self compassion because that's the place, where we all have to come to terms with we are who we are and we're going to love who we are and we're going to accept. And then self-reliance is the next step because I love when girls realize they have their own backs.
Mhm.
And that's part of my passion of doing this because like I said, it took me 40 some years to figure it out. So I'm like, I want you to learn in your teens because can you
Right.
imagine knowing that at their age? It's so exciting.
Mhm.
And then self-confidence is the third pillar, and that's something we'll work on, I think, until we die. But
Yep.
it's important to talk about it. But yes, so I'll offer those packages. And I also have some group coaching with college girls, and that's fun. Yeah.
Okay. Well, fantastic. Well, thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing your tools and strategies. This has been a really great conversation, and I really appreciate you taking the time to be here.
I've loved it. Thank you, Jennifer.
If you liked this episode, I'd like to invite you to join Raising Happy Teens, my free online community for parents of teenagers, where every week I host Ask a Coach. You bring your parenting questions, and I provide expert advice and coaching. Click the link in the show notes to join today. I'll see you inside.